Welcome to this video that can very well change your life. And I don't say this lightly because we're going to be discussing the most important piece of information you could ever learn if you want to live a better life. It will help you unlock peak performance, master your productivity, and blaze towards your goals at light speed. And that skill is none other than mental mastery. I truly believe this is one of the most important things you could ever learn as a human being. And for the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how to think about yourself, how to think about your mind, how to find the gap between the mind and the self, and how to step by step master your mind so that eventually you become someone who is calm, collected, and in control in all situations. That is never reactive to reality, but still it's proactive, consistently making effective choices that take you closer to your goals and operating at peak performance. So take pen and paper because we're going to go very deep into what constitutes human nature and how to master the most important tool that you could ever master, which is the human mind, right? So this video blends together spiritual frameworks, cognitive psychology, philosophy of the mind, and everything I've been reading and practicing for the past 10 years, right? There's no scientific consensus on the nature of consciousness, only theories. And this model that I'm going to be sharing with you is my model, which I believe is the most actionable for peak performance, right? The goal here is to allow you to perform at your peak every single day. That is the sole aim of this channel. This is what we do with entrepreneurs at Selfmastered, and that is the thing that excites me the most about building. If you don't know who I am, by the way, context, Leon Castillo, founder of Selfmastered. We train entrepreneurs in peak performance so they can scale with peak focus, clarity, productivity, and self-belief. Right? So what I'm going to be sharing with you is a blend of parts of scientific, cognitive psychology, philosophy of mind, but also spirituality frameworks. And before we talk about the mind, let me play with you. Let's do a couple of thoughts experiments in order to fully understand how to look at the mind as something that is not you. The first is what is called the Theseus ship. So Theseus is the founder of ancient Athens and is the hero that defeated the Minotaur. Once he came back, Minotaur was in Crete, remember, in the south of, in an island south of Greece. Once he came back to Athens after having slain the monster in a ship that started being worshipped by the Athenians. Every single year they will take the ship to Delos, which is a different island, in order to commemorate the victory over the Minotaur. But over the years, that wear and tear of transporting the ship every single day has started to affect the ship. So what the Athenians did is that they rebuilt the ship, replacing the parts that did not work. After a few years, none of the original parts of the ship were there, but the ship was still the same shape, the same symbolic function. This begets the question, is this the same ship? Is this ship that was rebuilt several times as the wear and tears proceeded the same ship that Theseus took to Crete? That is a thought experiment. Depending on how you want to look at this, you may say, well, it's not the same ship because every material has been replaced, or indeed it is because it holds the same symbolic function. And this is the key. That leads me to the second thought experiment. Look at yourself right now. Do you look like the same person that popped up from the womb of your mother, X amount of decades ago? Probably not. You've changed a lot. You don't have the same flesh. You don't have the same body. You don't have the same mind. You don't have the same thoughts and emotions. Everything has changed. You are radically different from that baby, but you're also very different from who you were last year. You're in constant motion. but you would never say you're not the right person. You still have a very firm sense of identity. You are that baby you see in the pictures. You are that infant that you remember from those memories in childhood. You are the same teenager that did all those stuff and had all that much fun. And now you are this adult that is trying to build this business. You are the same person, even though you don't look the same at all. You don't even have the same body. You don't even have the same mind, the same thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. You're doing different things. You're thinking different things. You are feeling different stuff, and you don't look like the person you were a year ago. Well, then, are you the same person? Is it the same riddle? Is the ship of Theseus the same ship? Are you the same person? The answer is yes. And in the case of human nature, that can only be the case if there's something deeper than our thoughts and our emotions. And that thing that is deeper than body and mind is, you guessed it, the soul. For Christians, it is the soul. For Hinduists, is the Atman. You have the Christians, you have the Hinduists, and you have the Ru, I think, for Islam, I think is the Ru. For Taoist is the Shen. It doesn't matter. The point, how you call it. The point is that every culture, every philosophical system has realized that there's a layer deeper than your mind and your body. You are not your mind and your body, then who are you? Well, you are soul, Atman, Ru, Shen, however you want to call it, doesn't really matter. But in practice, right, how does that translate is that you are the consciousness, the observer of the mind and the body. You are the observer of what's going on inside of your mind. Let's just put it this way, right? Let's assume that you have a tree here, right? That tree is reality, right? This is happening in reality. We won't go too deep into what reality is because it does not pertain to this video, but let's just assume that that actually exists, that combination of atoms that creates a tree, right? That is true, that is happening there, we are seeing it. Very Spartan jaw. All right, so same, we are looking at the reality. We're looking at perception. It's going through our eyes. We are understanding reality. And here, the mind is interpreting that this is a tree, right? And it literally creates two filters. Filter number one is mental. Filter number two is emotional, right? So we first have thoughts, and then we have feelings according to those thoughts, according to what those thoughts mean to us, mean to our past programming. This is our programming, right? So this is the mind, this is reality, but who are you? Where's the soul, right? The way of looking at the soul is understanding that you are a conscious observer of the mental, emotional, and beliefs and behaviors you normally display. The mind is a mental operating system that has been programmed throughout your life to interpret reality according to your past experiences. But you are not your mind. You are not your thoughts and your behaviors and your emotions, right? You are the conscious observer of them. You are literally not who you think you are. You are the conscious awareness of the internal environment that is happening when you are looking at reality. This is why, if you've been watching this channel, I always talk about reframing, about understanding how is your mind looking at a specific situation and changing the context of that discourse in order to have a possibility to move away of faulty negative patterns and bad habits, because you have a choice. Now, most people never really realize this. They don't understand that they have a choice, that their thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are a choice. They're not a pre-programmed inevitability, but they have indeed a choice. Once this is understood, when the nature of the self, right? Let's just call it self, right? Let's call it self, right? When the nature of the self is understood, then you are able to look at your mental world from an external perspective and understand when are you thinking thoughts and feeling feelings and doing behaviors that do not help you move forward. This is the key to mental management, because you cannot solve a problem at the level that is created. And this is a quote from Albert Einstein. If you really want to solve things, you need to move away from how the problem was created. If you want to solve the mind, you need to move away from the mind and look at it from an external perspective. This is how spirituality explains the nature of humankind. But at the same time, cognitive psychology discusses seeing you as, like all of this, as seeing you as context, not content, right? You are the thoughts, emotions, behaviors, and beliefs that happen according to the context in which you are living, right? So that is the first thing we have to understand. You are not your mind. You are the conscious awareness of your mind, and therefore you have a saying in which thoughts, emotions, and behaviors you display according to a specific stimulus. That is the crux of elite performance. This is what makes elite performers so good. It's not because they push harder. It's not because they work longer. They're able to push harder and work longer because they have control over their mind, so they never fall for burnout. They never end up quitting because they can control. Now, real quickly, right? What are thoughts, right? Thoughts, in essence, are pre-programmed mental images that you have of reality, right? This is interpretations that you automatically do about things that happen to you. When thoughts become when you think the same thoughts over and over again, you end up fossilizing those thoughts. They end up becoming guardrails for your thinking. And that is when you form a belief. A belief is a guardrail for your thinking. It is something you've thought so many times, a paradigms that you held so dear to your heart, yet you never question it. That is a belief, which is why unlocking peak performance requires updating your belief system very often. It's the only way in which you are able to unlock peak performance, because otherwise you will not push, you will not transcend your own self. Now, what are emotions? Emotions are, let's say, heart responses. So there are feelings that arise based on the interpretation the mind has done, and according to pre-built evolutionary responses or your own past conditioning. So assuming, for instance, that you were bitten by a dog when you were a kid, right? And you see a black dog, and you see a black dog again. The first thing that happens is that you mentally realize that this is a thought. You say, this is a dog, oh, dog. And then you say, oh, hate dogs, because let's assume that you were bitten by a dog, right? So you hate dogs. Well, the next thing you do is you display a behavior, right? The next step is the behavior. Oh, this is a dog. I hate dogs. Run. And you move, right? This is the same. That happens when, for instance, let's say that you are doing a marketing campaign, right? And you say launch. And then it bombs, right? And then you go into a negative funk, negative emotion, because you are attached to the result. And you end up cutting the campaign instead of learning, right? learning. This is another manifestation of how an entrepreneur will deal with reality. Something doesn't go the way you want it to go, and you eventually end up self-sabotaging, right? Just as in previous example, you could see a dog and run just because you were bitten by a dog. You could hold an expectation of a reality, and if that expectation does not match the results, well, then you go into a negative funk. This is the prototypical telltale sign of self-sabotage, right? But this is very important. Are we clear on how this works? Do you see why we cannot solve a problem at the level of the mind? We need to go outside and fully understand the self as the conscious observer, right? So in a way, I want you to think of the mind as an operating system, right? It is an operating system that interprets reality. It is forced to interpret reality. It has hundreds or billions of years of evolutionary pressure have created a mind that is forced to interpret the reality that it inhabits, right? There's no other way. If you see an image, you're going to have an opinion about that image. There's no such thing as fully ignoring the image or not being affected by what you see, what you smell, what you hear, unless you train yourself for that. And that leads me to the next point, right? If I'm saying that the mind is forced to interpret reality, does that mean that we are consistently interpreting every single thing? The answer is no. Because otherwise we will just go mad, right? We're only interpreting the information that we deem relevant. Only the things that we believe pertain to us. The things that affect us, right? And how do we make that distinction? Well, based on our programming. And what is the programming? Programming is, in essence, let's assume this is it's just like the brain, right? But let's assume that this is like the conscious, and this is the subconscious. This, of course, now I'm depicting the brain, right? But bear with me. This process 20 million bits per minute of information. The conscious mind processes 60 bits per minute. What that means is that your mind mostly is interpreting without outside of your conscious awareness what is happening around you. And it is doing so based on as I said before, your programming. And what is your programming? Your mind, everybody's programming, right? Because that's how the mind works. The programming is the sum of the meaning, let's say the sum of the meaning assigned to past experiences. To past experiences. Every time something happened to you and you didn't let it go and you personally got involved in it and you assigned meaning to it, either good or bad, you created what is called a mental imprint, right? Well, let's say past experiences, it's mental imprints. Mental imprints. This is a Western kind of term. Hindus, they will call it sanskaras. It doesn't matter how you call it. What it means is that every time something happened to you that you got personally involved in, that you care about it, that you didn't let it go, or you didn't just ignore it, that created a photographic impression in your mind. In a way, you stored a charge in your mind about a specific thing that you saw or experienced in the past. If you got bit by a dog, you have a negative charge in your mind. If you had your first chocolate ice cream when you were 3 years old and you loved it, then you have a positive charge in your mind. Right? So your mind has charges, has ways of looking at reality, perspectives that are inbuilt based on your experience through life. And most of this experience, or most of these charges, are stored before the age of 7. Why? Because until the age of 7, there's no much conscious thought going on, right? Of course, I'm being very schematic, right? Of course, there's conscious thought, but the idea is that the mind is literally absorbing everything that is going on in their life, right? There's no much judging or planning, there's just experiencing and getting involved with whatever reality brings. This is what children do until the age of 7. In fact, the Spartans, another Greek city, they started training their kids after they were 7. So why? Because they let the family pre-program the kid so he would have a personality. On the other side, the Jesuits, when they were working with orphans, before they would give the orphan to family, they will want to keep it until the age of 7 because they will program all the in his mind right behaviors and thoughts, so that he would end up being a religious person, right? So the age of 7 really is key. After the age of 7, of course, you're still programming your mind, which is, part of what we do is reprogramming entrepreneur's mind, but it requires conscious thought. It requires actual willingness to change it. All right, so are we clear on this? Your mind has a subconscious side and a conscious mind. The subconscious is 20 million bits per minute. The conscious 60 bits per minute. So you are operating in life without much saying if you're constantly living inside of your mind. If every time something happens, every time you are triggered, you do not control your mind, right? Let's assume that this is a trigger. You're going to have instinctual reactivity to the trigger. Whatever that trigger is, whatever happens to you, it doesn't matter, right? As soon as you're triggered, the mind is going to interpret and the subconscious mind is going to create an emotion. And if you're not careful, you are automatically going to jump to an instinctual reaction that most likely is not aligned with what you want to build in your life. Because most likely you're going to be operating past mental imprints that are not aligned with your current goals. And this is because performance problems are a misalignment. How do I create misalignment here? When the subconscious and the conscious are misaligned, when you want to push forward but you end up not pushing, when you are willing to talk on stage but you're afraid of it, when you do all sorts of stuff that you're consciously willing to do but your mind doesn't allow you to, it has a subconscious fear about it, that is when you self-sabotage. That is what performance problems happen. That is when, in essence, you end up quitting or being undisciplined or lacking focus or doing all sorts of stuff that you know you should not be doing, but you don't have a choice. The solution is to understand yourself as Atman, soul, as the self, as something that is outside of the mind and can choose the right thoughts, emotions, and behavior at each step of the way. Now, how do you do it? And this is the core part of the video. How do you master your mind? Well, there's basically two ways of mastering your mind. On the first thing you gotta do is you have to let go of negative programming. And two, you have to seek discomfort. This is in essence how you train an elite mind, by letting go of negative programming and seeking discomfort. How do you know what is the negative programming that is holding you back? Well, ask yourself what things trigger you. What are the things that you don't like? The stuff that you shy away from, the things that enrage you, the stuff that you really don't like to do or feel, or, anything, right? Anything that brings pain into your life, right? Pain of discomfort, of failure, of not feeling enough, or of negative expression, of uncertainty, anything that is bringing pain into your life is doing so because at the subconscious level, it's been interpreted as a threat, right? The mind, I didn't cover this, has two instinctual reactions. One is to seek pleasure, and the other one is to move away from pain. And those instinctual drives were well adjusted to the environment in which we inhabited hundreds of thousands of years ago, but it is not well adjusted today, which is why a lot of things that should be easy for us are hard, because the mind has not evolved to actually do them without discomfort, right? So performance problems come when subconscious and conscious are misaligned, and that misaligning comes from being in an environment in which we didn't evolve, right? That is very important. So every time you're hit with pain, that you do something or something happens to you and that is painful to you, that is because it has hit a trigger. Something in your past tells you that right now that is a negative thing, and you will resist it. You will try to not do it. You will move away from experiencing that pain. And over time, you are going to build a life that is designed to not feel pain, which is going to make you a very imbalanced entrepreneur and person, because discomfort is the way forward. Only by pushing outside of a comfort zone we can truly grow. But if every time we want to push, we are hit with fears and all the negative emotions that hold us back, we're never going to move forward. So letting go of your negative emotion is the most important thing. Otherwise, you're going to live a trigger-shaped life. Why do you think you have all of those folks buying random Lambos they never drive, having a watch collection they never use, and doing all sorts of stuff? Obviously, in order to impress others. For what? Because they feel the need to impress others based on the programming that they have inside. Maybe they didn't feel worthy enough right now, or they didn't feel in the past. Whatever that might be is always done in order to impress others. You don't see Elon Musk flaunting his Lambo and his watches, do you? Of course not. Entrepreneurs that are fully self-mastered, they are focused on the work. Anything that is flashy is mostly a compensation for an internal lack. Now, this leads me to the next point. So how you let go of negative programming is that you move through life, and every time you're hit by one of those negative emotions, you pause, understand the gap between the mind and the soul, right? There's a gap here. Understand what is the meaning of that thought and that emotion. Why is that thought and that emotion coming to you right now at this moment in time? What is the ulterior motive by which this is happening? And you let it go. This is hard if you do not understand the concept of the self and the mind. Because if you don't understand this concept, every time something happens to you, you will automatically assume that you are your thoughts and your emotions. You're going to jump to react to whatever it tells you to do, right? This is one of the things that we help our clients not do. They really master that mind so that when a marketing campaign bombs or a hire quits or whatever happens, because shit always happens, they're able to stay in control and do the things they need to, they already know how to do, right? So mastering the gap between self and mind is crucial for letting go. And mastering this gap requires meditation. Meditation is the number one spiritual habit. It is the thing that is going to widen your gap between the self and the mind. This is the thing that I recommend every single one of my clients do. I share with them all of my protocols. They all pick it up and they report incredible changes within a couple of weeks. Really, it's really, in terms of stress management and focus, it really is very fast, right? So we let go by not caring about the things that don't go our way. In order to do that, we need to understand what the gap is, but in order to fully find this gap, we do it through meditation. We understand that we're not our thoughts or emotion, and we create that gap so that over time, we're always one step removed from our thoughts and our emotions, and we're always able to remain in control of what we need to do, right? So step one is let go of negative programming, and step two is to seek discomfort, right? We cannot escape discomfort because growth stands at the other side of pain, of discomfort. The thing is, we can reframe this discomfort as something positive, as something that is helping us grow. Every time we're seeking discomfort and we are hit with a trigger that triggers whatever we triggers based on our programming, we understand that we can let it go and then push through. That is the cycle. That is how you do it. But in order to do it effectively, you need to understand you're not your mind, right? So letting go of negative programming and seeking discomfort. And you have to find the ideal balance. If you push too hard and lean too hard into discomfort, you burn out. If you let go of everything and you do not do anything with your life except letting go, you end up meditating in a cave in the Himalayas. And you are an entrepreneur, you're not interested in doing this. Right? So this is very important for you to understand. This is how you master your mind. This is what some people call mental jujitsu. It's understanding that thoughts and emotions are options that you have, right? You get thoughts and emotions automatically, but you can choose whether you pay attention to them or not. And that is the ultimate skill, because it allows you to fully make effective choices. Because after a thought and emotion comes what? Comes a behavior. You will not sabotage, you will not engage in nasty habits, you will always show up for the gym at the time you need to show up if you are in full control of your mind. This truly is the most important thing you could ever learn. And in fact, after you have let go enough times, after you have sought discomfort but also let go enough time, you eventually reach a state called neutrality. Neutrality is when your mind is tranquil and in control of everything that is going on. If you get good news, good. If you get bad news, good. It doesn't matter. Neutrality is the ultimate enable of peak performance. You will not perform at your peak if you're constantly reacting to life. But if you're never reacting because you expect your thoughts and your emotions to go haywire depending on the trigger that the reality hits, and you still pause and you understand you have that choice and you move away from instinctual reaction that tend not to be aligned with your long-term goals, and instead keep calm, collected, and in control. In order to make a good decision, this is when you win. This is what makes elite performers elite. When you are neutral is when you are able to perform in a concert in front of 100,000 people. When you're able to score your penalty at the World Cup finals. When you don't doubt yourself when you're signing your biggest deal. All of those things stem from a good understanding of what the mind is, and more importantly, how to work with it. right? So this is a video, a primer on mental mastery. If you want to learn this very quickly, sign up for our program. I want to show you exactly how it's done. This is going to be the thing that really changes your life. But in the meantime, it's all about letting go and seeking discomfort. And the number one habit that I can tell you to do that is going to have an incredible impact in your life is called meditation. Not because it relaxes you, but because it shows you what is the gap. The gap is the thing that tells you you are not your mind. So I hope this was useful. Let me know if this is clear in the comments. I'm going to be doing more of this content because it seemed like you like it very well. Let me know in the comments if everything is clear. Any doubts whatsoever, like the video, subscribe, and if you want my one-on-one help, sign up for a call, and see you on the next video. I really value you guys on the other side. Stay well. Cheers.